I was considering an off-roader for India
Yeah.
because I have a really tiny car back home. Because as an expat, I visit maybe a month in a year maximum, and I don't have never had that kind of a need before I got into off-roading. I have a Maruti Alto, and that gets around quite
You need that
quite
kind
well.
of a car to move around in
In
especially smaller towns
yeah,
because of traffic congestion and parking,
yeah,
and the ability for it to squeeze like a motorcycle.
yeah. Of course, it's amazing on several levels. It gets you almost everywhere where you want to go. It's surprisingly light, and unless you challenge it, really challenge it with difficult terrain, it basically goes almost everywhere where I need to go. But the challenge with that is since it's a smaller platform, the moment you hit the highways in India, if you're traveling at higher speeds and there's a pothole, then you're in trouble.
Yeah, that's true.
So more than off-roading, I think I'm considering an off-roader for the roads in India.
That does make sense.
So this is where I wanted to ask you. So I'm looking for off-roader that I can use part-time, as in part of the year in Mangalore. And I'm looking for something that is sturdy, something that I can really push to the limits. But I'm not looking to spend, say, 20, 30 lakhs on a vehicle. So what would be my options from you could say, even from the vintage vehicles?
So the thing is that, do you want it to be a family-oriented car or do you want it for yourself?
I want it for myself because I already have a family car. I want something that is purely for pushing it off-road.
Something for yourself, and let's start from the older ones.
Mm-hmm.
You still do have the MM540s, which is
That's
something
the one I
which
had my eye on.
that's something which you should always,
Mm-hmm.
at least once in a lifetime, own one of those. And also you can look at modifying them because they are one of the most basic technology which they have. It's a ladder chassis, leaf spring, and then the engine on top of it, and then your body.
That's it.
So that gives you the ability to modify each and everything. You can get out from the leaf spring, get into a double wishbone. You can, of course, the rear still, because it's a ladder, so the rear still will need a leaf spring because of that particular constraint which they face over there. Unless, it's not that it is a constraint. You can still go into coil and strut, but it is always suggestible for those road conditions, for those kind of a load conditions. Why you use a leaf spring? Because you want to have higher load
Capacity.
So that's what you would keep that there for. But I'm talking not spending too much as well, and being economical. And you can literally convert that vehicle to look like a modern day Jeep.
And how about reliability?
It depends on how well you have modified the car.
And it being a diesel vehicle, can you keep it as a part-timer that runs only part of the year?
Yes, you can.
What do I need to do?
General maintenance is that diesels, diesels need heat to run. So you need to ensure that the vehicles are always in a running condition. So even if you're not there, somebody needs to start it up, move it forward, helps you not getting flat spots, keeps your vehicle running, or constant oil changes. Even if it's not running, that means, but still every 6 months you still need to change your oil.
Right.
So these things are something which you need to keep into mind. So even if you're considering that you're going to be there only 1 month in a year, and the rest of the time the vehicles may lie idle, it needs to move around. It just cannot sit there.
Right. So it has to be driven.
Yes, and at a place like Mangalore, rodents also are going to be a big challenge over there. So the other ones are going to eat up wires and everything.
So does it have to be driven like every single day, or
no? If, let's say once a week, it just goes out for a few kilometers and comes back, should be fine.
So
yeah, the main point is that the engine runs,
right.
So that it keeps its thing moving.
The MM540 strikes to me as a vehicle that you don't need to be too worried about braking.
To brake it is a challenge because, as I told you, it's just a ladder chassis, a set of suspensions, and the engine and a body on top of it.
Not many things in there.
Not many things to brake. So that's the advantage of earlier vehicles. The number of moving parts were much less. And the technology on them was much less compared to the ones today.
Almost no electronics.
The ones which you would get today, I've still seen the ones today which are the earlier ones have not yet been modified to disc brakes. They're still running on drum brakes, both front and rear. The four-wheel drives, they use a concept called lambda, which is a small device which is fitted onto the front axle, and you actually need to take a plier and switch it on and switch it off. I mean, turn it on, twist it on and twist it off. So
I'm happy to live with that.
so
That's all right.
But these are some of the challenges which you do that. And applying brakes, I still recollect one day when I was going up the Ghat section, and come up, I had absolutely, because of climbing. Going towards coming down, I realized that the brakes are not sufficient. And not only myself, the person sitting next to me was also stomping on top of the brake first to apply the brake. So that was our condition till we got the car to stop.
Right.
But fortunately, we managed to bring it to a halt and then towed it after that because it was too dangerous to drive.
So engine braking was the way you were going.
That's the way we ended up stopping it and towing it. But let's say you go in for one of these earlier cars, converting them into a disc brake would be
a good investment. Right. And the parts are readily available as well.
I'm sure. Right. I do not have much this thing on that, but I'm sure they're going to be readily available.
I had quite a, surprise with MN540 a couple of years ago, I think. I was in India and a friend was showing me a recently refurbished MM540 he had. So I don't think he had put in a lot of money into it. It was done up well. It was refurbished to pristine condition. The car's suspension had been upgraded. It had a snorkel. It had all the off-road bells and whistles. And we took a little drive. And this was my first time in a MM540. And he was telling me, look, there's a play in the steering. You have to basically live with this. This is not a modern car. It had a sticker saying there's no airbags. We die like men. And what surprised me, number one, out here at work, I work with Land Cruisers and Jeep Wrangler Rubicons all the time. That car was smoother than the Jeep I drive here. And that car is old as me. It's a 1986 model. And I was like, not bad. If I don't need to break my present car, my bank or my present car doing things that I do.
Exactly.
I could get one of these really cheap.
Yeah.
And
you won't have you don't feel that fear factor of let's say I modifying it and something is going to go wrong. No?
Yeah. That's an advantage because you can't go wrong with many things on an MM540 because it's so low tech and in a good way, very low tech. Yeah. You have very less risk of breaking something and having a huge bill at the end of the month.
Yeah.
And since I didn't know much at the time about Mahindra Jeeps and even now.
It's the Mahindra and the Jeep.
Mahindra and the Jeep, sorry.
Okay.
About the MM540s and the other older models. My concern was since I'm not in the country most of the year, is it something that I should be going for? But after speaking to you, maybe
it will be. You'll enjoy it
because it's good to have one off-roader that you can not bother about breaking anything on the car and go wherever you want.
True. So that's one thing. And then if you're an enthusiast and you like to have the open air, you can even look at keeping the chassis of an MM540 and going in for a Willys kind of a body.
Right. So that's completely open with the collapsible.
Yeah, even if a 540 can collapse and you can get it open, but then what happens with the 540? Your bonnets are higher. With the Willys chassis, with the Willys body, you have a lower bonnet. So you can look into that sort of a concept as well.
Right, it gives you much more visibility and
gives you a better look. Right. Nothing to do with it just looks good and it's an open thing, so you're much more.
I'm talking visibility because I drive an FJ.
Yeah,
visibility is not my friend.
Yeah, that's I know.
Since you started with the FJ as well, yeah.
And the 3 wipers in the front also a bit confusing sometimes.
And the upright windshield.
Yes.
Yeah, that can be some trouble.
Yes.
I'd be really worried about driving the FJ, especially about the windshield in India.
Yeah.
Because anything that flies into it will break it.
True.